I'm Ken Patterson, the host of the What's Neat show at Model Railroad Hobbyist Magazine, and tonight I've got Kevin Ruble. Kevin Ruble, the owner of Caboose, that hobby shop in Lakewood, Colorado. That wonderful place where Kevin has a passion for the hobby, but not only that, Kevin's really got passion for people. The one thing I've gotten out of talking to you over the last few hours is how much people is first, profits are second, and there's a philosophy behind that. But Kevin, tell us your passion about trains.
Oh, wow. Well, that started a long time ago. Probably when I was, I was a kid, very young kid, and certainly 3 or younger. I'm a fourth generation railroader. My grandfather worked for the Illinois Central Railroad in Kentucky, out of Central City, Kentucky, in track service, and my uncle worked for the the Indiana Harbor Belt for a while, and so that makes me the fourth generation railroader in our family. So I've worked for real railroads right out of college. I worked for the Katy Railroad, but far before that, there was a spark within, if you will, for a passion for trains. And I really just love trains. So I not only have a genetic predisposition, if you will, for enjoying trains, but also environmental, because I grew up in the Chicago area. Both my parents grew up in Northwest Indiana, and so if you're familiar with that part of the country, you know that particularly back in the 60s and 70s, there were dozens of railroads that came in beneath the south end of Lake Michigan, entering Chicago, and they all came together in Northwest Indiana. So it was hard to go anywhere in that part of the country without being caught by a train in a crossing. So I was surrounded by trains, whether by nature or nurture. So it was just fairly natural that I became a train enthusiast. And I practiced that my entire life. So far, I've went to college with the intention of working for a railroad. Worked for the Katy Railroad right out of college, and went back, got my graduate degree, my MBA, and ended up in finance for quite a while, but couldn't get very far away from the railroad industry. So I started consulting and helping buyers and lenders, buyers of and lenders to spin-offs from Class 1 railroads, starting with the Illinois Central in the mid-'80s, and also working with Santa Fe and the Burlington Northern and CSX, among others. So I had a passion for that and started consulting, helping folks do that. I also had another passion for what I've come to call conscious business, which is, and particularly conscious employee-owned business, which is just running a business with a higher purpose than profitability. So companies like Southwest Airlines, REI, Patagonia, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, companies like this that lead the marketplace by not focusing necessarily on the bottom line, but by focusing on a higher purpose, doing something positive for society. So I had the opportunity to marry those two passions, if you will, in 2005 with the divestiture of the Ludington branch in Michigan from CSX Transportation. As the founder of Marquette Rail, I led that transaction, and we ended up acquiring by lease. I have a little map here. If you want to zoom in on, if you can zoom in on that. We acquired by lease 130 miles of railroad from Grand Rapids up to Ludington and Manistee, Michigan. And I say marrying two passions because one was I'd always had a passion to own a railroad, but the second was this railroad was employee owned, and that was a significant a step for me, because I insisted that any deal we did in the industry would be owned significantly by our employees. Marquette Rail was 60% employee owned. And here's a nice, for those who are interested in the model side, this is a model of one of our the only locomotive, as a matter of fact, that ever got painted in our true paint scheme, the 3001. This is a model made by Mike's Train House a few years ago. And that was a paint scheme that I was able to I designed myself and actually helped apply in the shop. So it's always been natural that I be in the train business. And so we ran Marquette. I ran Marquette for the first 5 years and then moved to Colorado when we made a decision that the timing was right to probably sell the company. And again, we had employee ownership, so we had to think what was in the best interest of the employee owners. Warren Buffett had just purchased BNSF and changed dynamics of the industry. And so we held an auction and decided to invite the usual suspects. Got down to bidding between a few companies, and ultimately the best offer came from Rail America, which purchased our property, and they closed early 2012. Now our return on investment was pretty phenomenal. I've worked in venture capital and I've worked in investment banking, and in those fields it would have been a business home run. But what made me most proud about that particular transaction was the fact that of our 30 employee owners, when we sold, 13 had been with us since startup, and every one of those walked away with more than $1 million in their ESOP account each. And so my purpose when I started Marquette Rail was to make a difference in people's lives, and we did that. That's central to everything I do. So it's no different today at Caboose. So I'm passionate about trains. I'm having a lot of fun running Caboose and growing it into some new areas, new for this space and for this hobby. But also passionate about the amazing team that we have built. Many of whom you've probably seen their stories on these videos, and so that's my story. I really have enjoyed being a part of the railroad industry and the model railroad and the railroad enthusiast industry. It's been a lot of fun. But what's been most fun? It's a lot of fun being around trains. I have a picture here of myself when I was probably 14 years old in Downers Grove, Illinois, taking pictures of that's me, the skinny kid, taking pictures on a platform of the Main Street station of a passing Burlington Northern freight. But that part's fun. I'm enamored with trains. But what's been the best, whether it's the real railroad industry, the short line industry, or working for the Katy, or working with Caboose, is people. That's the juice for me. So it's been a great ride, and it continues to be.